Preposterous, ponderous, and pretentious, a more fitting title would have been Hell in the Cinema.
You say you're just a man, but I felt you hold my hand. Now I'm just a gray.
Hi, welcome to the Silver Spleen. My name is Gerald Risdale, and this is my review of Heaven in the Dark. Heaven in the Dark is based on a local play named French Kiss, but I watched it anyway. I'm not a big fan of movies made from plays. There tends to be a lot of talking and not much doing, which sounds like two Mormons on a date, but I digress. The original play takes place in one room and is a conversation between two people. Heaven in the Dark, thankfully, isn't that claustrophobic. There are exteriors and different locations, and sometimes the camera even moves. As my mother always says, thank f***. Heaven in the Dark was nominated for Best Film of 2015 at the Hong Kong Film Awards, even though it only opened in March of 2016. Jacky, Cheung, and Karena were also nominated for Best Actor and Actress, respectively. Too bad there's no award for most acting. There's lots of acting going on here. These are the kinds of roles that have Aaron Kwok weeping in jealousy, or cranking his junk, one or the other. Good God, where were we? Heaven in the Dark has the kind of acting that seems tailor-made for awards. Lots of slow dialogue. Long monologues that go into excruciating detail about how people feel, while, of course, drinking red wine and staring out the windows of expensive cars and exclusive social clubs or outrageously luxurious homes. How they suffer. Heaven in the Dark comes a long time after 2002's excellent July Rhapsody, which also starred Jacky Cheung and Karena. But that movie was directed by An Hui. Heaven in the Dark was directed by Stephen Yun Kim Wai, aka Mr. Karena. Yes, her husband. Oh joy. He directed the film and adapted the screenplay. So more than anyone else, he has to shoulder the responsibility for this movie's cheap symbolism and meretricious pretension. Heaven in the Dark slowly tells the story of a pastor who runs an NGO. His name is Marco, and he's played by Jacky Cheung. A young woman named Michelle, played by Karena, starts working for him. They take an apparent interest in one another, and one night, while both of them are quite drunk, they share an intimate moment. It has a deleterious effect on both their lives. 5 years later, they meet at some kind of dusty, constipated dinner/piano recital. A setting so aridly waspish that I felt myself getting lockjaw just watching the damn thing.
Heavens, a Yale man!
Michelle's husband basically forces her to go into a room alone with Marco, a man she accused of sexually harassing her, to hash it all out, while her husband practices for his piano recital.
Who writes that stuff?
Their discussion about conflicting understandings of the moment and its meaning makes up a large part of the movie. Or maybe it doesn't. Maybe it just felt that way. Stage actors are said to act with their voices because there's no such thing as close-ups in theater. Film actors supposedly act with their eyes. Jacky Cheung does a lot of acting. He acts like a contortionist. Or maybe he's doing all the facial acting that Karena doesn't do. Now, I'm sure that it's just my barbarian nature, my vestigial papist leanings, my repugnant working-class genetics that make it impossible for me to appreciate the subtle emotional filigree of Karena long, aching, soulful gazes. Because all I could hear in my head was the voice of my alcoholic Uncle Charlie asking, "Hey, is that broad autistic? I haven't seen so much blank staring since I worked at a morgue." It's probably no coincidence that my favorite character in the film was a mechanic played by Edmund So Chi-wai. He's the only character that doesn't come off as a self-absorbed, miserable slug of a human being. Well, almost the only one. You know how a lot of Hong Kong movies have characters with the same name as the actors playing them? Karena character is named Michelle. So too is actress Michelle Y, who has a small role in this movie, in which she is quite good. Now, in an ideal world, or in an ideal Hong Kong, Michelle Y would have played the lead role. I think she'd have been much more watchable and much more convincing as a woman who tempts a pastor. I certainly would have liked the film more and maybe even respected it a little. As it is, I just couldn't. One of the most laughable scenes in the film, for me, may have been in the original play, and I ain't gonna check. So I can't necessarily blame the director/writer. During the sexual harassment trial, the judge, played by Tyson Chak, is revealed to be a former student of the prosecutor, played by Law Lan, who proceeds to browbeat her former student into favorable rulings in the court. Now this is the beauty of theater and fiction. There's no need to allow logic or reality or truth to intrude on whatever puerile fantasy you're peddling. It's not as though there's any conflict of interest here that would create legal wrongdoing, because it's only a story. And apparently there's no problem expecting your audience to still buy into this nonsense, even if it means that you've wasted a very fine and very watchable Anthony Wong performance as Marco's attorney. The climax of Heaven in the Dark is laughable for any number of reasons. By this point in the film, the emotional angst of the story has been ratcheted beyond reason by the contrivances of the plot. Worse, the two leads devolve into psychologically epileptic parodies, I don't know either, and I wrote it, of human behavior, swaddled in the kind of sophomoric symbolism that's much more a mark of pedantry than perceptiveness. This story poses a lot of questions, the answers to which don't interest me in the least. Why should I feel bad for someone whose overblown cathartic moment comes in a fountain at a posh social club? Or for some woman whose religious fervor looks dangerously close to a psychotic episode? I feel sorry for none of these characters. I hated almost all of them. Now, on one hand, I feel kind of bad talking negatively about this movie, if only for the sake of Jacky Cheung. He tries his best, and I don't really blame him for how much I dislike this movie. But I don't feel bad disliking it because I paid money to watch it, and I sat through the whole thing. I don't care about any of these awful, self-absorbed people or the movie they made. I can't really recommend that you watch Heaven in the Dark, except maybe to laugh at it. And that's just my opinion. If you like that play and if you like this movie, good for you. I'm sincerely jealous because I really didn't. But if you want to watch it, do me the favor. Do it legally. Don't watch it online. Don't download a copy. It's still in a cinema now. You could go see it that way. And if not, you could wait until you could rent or buy a copy of it. Please, stop stealing movies. It's stupid. When this movie is released to home video, as much as it will pain me to do so, I will update the description with a link where you can buy a copy. If you enjoyed this review, please tell me. If you didn't enjoy this review, go back to watching theater. If you enjoy the channel, please subscribe. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you again soon.